The latest edition of the Kosher Food Guide has been released for this year, and there have been some surprising yet pleasant additions to it, including more in the way of health-conscious foods and a helping hand to those with intolerances such as wheat and dairy. I've been speaking to Rabbi Jeremy Conway, Director of Kashrut Division London Beth Din, and I started by asking him to remind us exactly what the guide is for those who may have missed it.
The wonderful thing about the Really Jewish Food Guide, and I think it's almost unique in the sense that I don't think they have a similar thing even in the huge American Jewish community or in Israel, is here we have a guide to regular products available in supermarkets and stores across the country. We're not talking about products which were specifically made for the Jewish market and have a kosher symbol on them necessarily, but we're investigating what the average Jewish person has available in their local corner shop or their local supermarket and advising them, is it kosher, is it non-kosher, is it perhaps dairy unexpectedly, or can we know that it's definitely parav, which means of course non-dairy.
So although obviously most people will have an understanding of what kosher is and what makes something kosher or not, what are the requirements, as far as the KLBD is concerned, to make it into the guide? What rules do they have to pass?
The first criteria for getting in the guide, actually, because people often ask us, what decides how a product gets in the guide or doesn't get in there? Obviously, there are tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of products available on the shelves. We're investigating the products which are popular, and we know they're popular because people are asking us about them. So we have, for example, a fabulous Facebook site, which I'd encourage our listeners to take a look at, with over 6,000 members now. And they're talking about kosher the whole time, and they're asking us, what about this product? What about that? We're investigating the products that people want to know about. What do we investigate? Well, the first thing is, of course, that there's nothing there of animal origin. And one would be amazed, even in this day and age, with the horrors of mad cow disease and goodness knows what else, there are not so rarely ingredients which could be of animal origin. And then, of course, in Jewish tradition, according to kosher law, not all fish are kosher either. Only fish which have fins and scales, only certain types of scales indeed. Stenoid and cycloid for those experts of ours who listen, scales which come off easily off the fish. So we're investigating that there's nothing which would make the product non-kosher, which essentially is anything of animal origin. Secondly, anything of non-kosher fish origin. Even items of wine and cheese have special kosher regulations, and we would ensure in a regular product that there's nothing of wine or grape origin in the product. And of course, we can't have meat and milk mixed together. And another great principle in kosher law is that of shared use of equipment. Anybody who runs a kosher kitchen knows that we have separate equipment, crockery, cutlery, pots and pans for milky, and separate equipment for meaty. And of course for Pesach, people have new sets as well. And that's because according to halakha, according to Jewish law, equipment is considered to absorb a little bit of the flavor and let the flavor out again into the next product that's made. And therefore we check also shared use of equipment.
Okay, so take someone like me, for example, who I have to confess I don't necessarily keep kosher, but I keep within boundaries that would be respectable to our religion, that I would not obviously eat treif or anything like that. But is there much of a demand for this? Only because I would imagine that for someone who actually keeps strictly kosher, I can't imagine that they'd go into an everyday supermarket. They wouldn't necessarily want to buy everyday products. They'd want to go into their local kosher supermarket, wouldn't they?
No, surprising though it may seem, the majority of the Jewish population do not live in Golders Green, even though we've got quite a high population there. So not everybody has a kosher shop easily available to them. And it's extraordinary how you do find Jews everywhere, even Jews who want to keep kosher in what should I say, I don't know, Exeter or Edinburgh or even Aberdeen. And that's why the guide is absolutely essential facet of Jewish life. We're listing here over 8,500 products. That's 1,000 more than we did last year, so it's a real bumper edition this time, and I think it's 990 new products. We realise nowadays, especially all the scares, horse meat and such like, has helped us in the sense that people realise you can't assume anymore you know what's in a product. Indeed, although according to the labelling regulations, most ingredients should be listed there, but there are things called processing aids. For example, at home, when you put some margarine on the pan before you bake a cake so that it won't stick. In every factory they use release agents, and they may be using a fat, which is of animal origin, or fish origin, or may have something of dairy in there, and that doesn't have to be declared at all. So if one wants to keep kosher properly, I would say the guide is an essential of Jewish life. After the Siddur, maybe the Chumash, the next book you need on your shelves is the guide.
That's the trilogy, is it?
Absolutely. The truth is, nowadays we have also a website. We have a fabulous new website as of the last year or so. Is it kosher? .uk.
So people can actually put in products and have a look there,
yes,
can
it's
they?
a search engine. You can get all the information of the products absolutely free of charge. So we don't sell as many guides as we used to, although you will find one in many, many Jewish homes, and obviously the kosher authorities and the people who work for them, the shomrim at the restaurants, and the shul administrators and the rabbis, everybody wants a hard copy. But the basic information is available now, thanks to the United Synagogue sponsoring this project. It's available free of charge on isitkosher.uk.
Well, we'll ask you for that website again in just a moment's time, but there was a report that was out quite recently that suggested that those who wish to keep kosher end up paying considerably more than those in the community who don't. Could that be a worry that people are going to be put off keeping kosher if that's the case?
It's definitely a worry, and that's precisely the reason that we produce this guide, and why we're so excited about the fact that we have, I think, 10,000 hits a week on this isitkosher.uk site, and so many people are using the guide, because these products are available at the same price as all of the vast majority of them. These are normal products which people are asking us about, and we're investigating. This is not like in the old days when a small Jewish company are producing an ice cream specially for the Jewish market. And it's more expensive, of course, not because of the supervision, but of course just of the logistics of getting the ingredients and using a factory for a small batch of product, which is going out to such a small consumer population. These products, which are produced in the million for the millions, are regular prices. And that's why the work we're doing here for the Really Jewish Food Guide is so important.
Now, in an ever-changing world where people's dietary requirements become different and people recognise that they maybe have intolerances towards certain types of ingredients, how has the guide adapted to maybe incorporate some people who say might be gluten intolerant?
I'm so pleased you asked me that question, actually, because if you would have said, what is the one thing in which this guide differs or improves upon the previous guides, it is on the special dietary requirements which people have. We now have in this guide 6 pages of gluten-free products, 140 more products than we had last year, and also dairy-free, those people who are lactose intolerant. This is a huge area. We've got 90 new dairy-free products in here. I'm amazed when I look at the list myself. There are yogurts, dairy-free, cheese, dairy-free, milks, coconut milk and such like. Confectionery is extremely important, chocolate. So we're really making a big effort. There's so many people who have special dietary needs of one sort or another. I don't know whether the Jewish population have more than other people, but it's something we're trying very hard to address.
I'm guessing that the guide is obviously an ever-developing item. It's not necessarily something that you start from scratch every single year when you put it together. But how is all the information gathered? Who does the groundwork to go in to actually check these products? How are they tested? How can you confirm that these products definitely have earned a place in the guide?
This is actually a very substantial project. We have 3 people sitting, investigating products during the years. You rightly say the fact that we investigated it and listed it last year, most of these products don't have an official hechsher. That means they're not tied up. Actually, there are 2,000 products now. We've made great strides in recent years. Everybody says, I went to America, everything on the shelves has an OU or a circle K, these different kosher symbols. Why don't we have more of that here? We've been making great strides in recent years. There are over 2,000 products available out there in the market which bear a little KLBD and are kosher certified. The advantage of that is that means there's a legal contract, and once they've given us the information, they have to stick to it, or if they need to change a supplier, which would be significant, they have to notify us who they're changing to and check with us that that's okay. But for the other 6,000 products we're listing here, we don't have that kind of absolute guarantee, so we have to keep in regular contact with them. And if we want more products, then that's more work, apart from updating the old ones. So I have a team of 3 people who are in contact with the companies. They have to build up a relationship because they're not obliged to give us any information. They have to know the information will be kept strictly confidential. And we're asking sometimes for quite detailed information, like who is the supplier of your vegetable fat. We don't want a fat which is coming even from a refinery which produces animal fat, tallow, on the same equipment. So we're asking some quite detailed, quite confidential information, which most manufacturers across the country are happy to give us and share with us in strict confidence. Sometimes we sign a confidentiality agreement. We're asking for information on the ingredients, any processing aids I mentioned before, like a release agent or an anti-foam, and various different things which could be used, in enzyme. And we're asking them about shared use of equipment. And we have a database which records all this and prompts us to update the information on a regular basis.
Just finally, if someone wants to get a hold of a hard copy of the guide, where do they go? How do they obtain it?
Okay, the guide is available in all good Jewish bookstores. Of course, most of the kosher food stores also sell a guide. So they're encouraging people to shop not only with them, but to shop in the supermarket as well, once you know what you can buy and what you can't. And of course, they can buy it via the United Synagogue and via our website, kosher.org.uk, or as I say, via the United Synagogue.
Rabbi Jeremy Conway, Director of the Kashrut Division, London Beth